about working through and finding the composition of two functions. A very important idea when it comes to calculus is the idea of visualizing or being able to see a function as a composite function. Because the things that we're going to do in calculus, differentiation and integration, and those words may not mean anything to you right now, but the things that we're going to be doing have to be done differently when we deal with a composite function. So one of the ideas we want to consider here is representing a function as a composite. So given an algebraic function, figure out the pieces that would compose together to give you that particular function. So here we want to find f and g so that h of x can be expressed as f of g of x. So consider first the function here, h of x equals 2x minus 3 to the fourth. I'm going to ask you to pause the video and think about this problem for a moment. What functions could you put together by composition, substituting one into the other? Remember, that's what composition is, to give that function. So I'm going to ask you to pause it for a moment, think about that, and we're going to go over it together. So as we look at this problem here, what we want to look at is the different operations that are involved. Because of order of operations, we would have to simplify the inside first, then raise it to the fourth. So there's really two things going on here. We're multiplying and simplifying 2x minus 3 and then taking that answer and raising it to the fourth. Well, that speaks to the outer or the last operation being raising stuff to the fourth power. And then what is being raised to the fourth power? What's getting put into that fourth power expression? That quantity on the inside, 2x minus 3, and that's our g function. And so now when you do the compose, you would substitute 2x minus 3 in for x, and you would get the quantity 2x minus 3 raised to the fourth power. Let's just start to practice these a little bit, hopefully they get a little easier for you to see. Let's consider a second example here. H of x is equal to the square root of x plus 1. Square root of x plus 1. So once again, as we look at this problem, we think about how we would work this problem out. First, we would have to evaluate x plus 1. Once we get that answer, we then have to take the square root. So the outer operation here is the square root. And what are we taking the square root of? Well, we're taking it of x plus 1. Now, a very important idea here with composition, these answers are not in any way unique. You can actually come up with, for a given function, many different ways to compose two functions together to get that result. So with this one here, let me just show you a couple of other ways. And once you see an example or two, you can really say, well, we could do this forever. So on the one hand, I could let f1 of x be the square root of x plus 1. And then g1 of x is x. So I just go in there and replace x with x. That really doesn't do a whole lot. So that's kind of a cheap one. And then another one we could do here is f2 could be square root of x plus 2. g2 could be x minus 1. So when you put in the x minus 1, you'd have x minus 1 plus 2, which becomes just the x plus 1 on the inside. And so you can see, hopefully here at this point, how you could write others out. How you could keep writing more and more terms out as we go on. So I want to go to one last example here. Our third example, this is h of x equals sine squared of 3x. And once again, we want to come up with two functions. So one of the things we have to realize here is that sine squared 3x is a shorthand. What that really means is, I didn't have a pause in there. For some reason it didn't pause. Let me go back. There we go. Okay. So sine squared of 3x is really sine of 3x squared. And then we said, well, just like the last problem, we have something being squared. So I can write down f of x equals x squared. All right, that's the outer operation. First I'm going to compute sine of 3x, then I'm going to square it. And so my inside function would be sine of 3x. Now this one actually has another level of composition, so The instructions were to do two functions, so we did that. We could also, if we had wanted, done sine squared as my first function and 3x as my other function. And so we actually, if we want it, could write this down as three functions. The outermost operation is the squaring, then the sine function, then the 3x. So working it out, we'd first figure out 3x, we'd then take sine of that answer, we would then square it. And so we have the functions there, x squared, g of x being sine x, and k of x, our third little function there, being 3x. So sometimes you're going to have more than one level of composition. Here we actually have two levels of composition. And again, the whole idea here is that we want to be aware of this because it's going to become important when we start doing calculus things with functions.